Good evening and welcome to the Planning Board meeting, regular meeting of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry on Thursday evening, September 5 at 8 p.m. in the Village Boardroom. We have nine items on our printed agenda. I would mention that item number 9 has been removed for tonight. It's currently being discussed with the Board of Trustees. So it may come back to us at some point, but at this point it's removed. In view of Anna Markowitz's resignation last month, alternate member Laura Haupt will be voting tonight as a regular member.
Condolences.
We don't get to vote on that. On item 7, 71 Cedar, the public hearing was closed at our last meeting and will not be reopened tonight, so there will be no comments taken from the public tonight on the 41 Cedar application. It will be with the Board of Trustees. I don't know whether at their next meeting or a future meeting.
It will be with the Board of Trustees when it comes to us with recommendations from the Planning Board and from the AHRB.
Right. Oh,
And
and
We can't hear you. Just wait till everybody gets.
you're gonna have to repeat that, Steve.
I think
And is the AHRB here? Have they seen it yet?
I'm going to pause for a minute while some people file in. Please come in, but in any case, would you please be quiet? So the meeting has been opened.
Are the mics on? Jen?
Hello?
Thank you very much,
Yes,
everybody.
the mics are on.
You have to be close.
Get closer. I was just starting to mention that item 7 on our agenda, 41 Cedar Street, is the public hearing was closed at our last meeting, and it will not be reopened tonight. Once, well,
Excuse me, once a public hearing is closed before the planning board, it can't be reopened. The planning board is going to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees will have a public hearing where everybody will have an opportunity, an ample opportunity to speak. I believe it probably will be open for more than one session. In addition, all comments that have been emailed, there were some comments that were sent to the planning board this week. All of those are being sent to the Board of Trustees as well, so they will have the full benefit of the written comments that have been submitted.
May I just ask, when was the public hearing? Because we weren't made aware of it.
excuse me, if you're going to make a comment, please use the microphone.
All right?
Not really, but
No comments, just you can ask a question about procedure.
Well, I
Yeah.
was simply asking, when was the public hearing for 41 Cedar Street?
it was last month and the previous month.
Well, actually, it was opened at least 2 months ago.
Yeah.
First
Yeah.
presentation came in June, I believe.
right.
It was held over to July and then the August meeting.
Right.
Very good.
At which time it was
I wasn't
closed.
aware of it.
No, okay.
Now I am. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
At which time it was closed in August.
That's right. That's right.
I would also like to reiterate that the Board of Trustees, the members, have been reading the emails that have been coming in. We will be, when it is sent to the Board of Trustees with the recommendations from the AHRB and the Planning Board, the Board of Trustees will be holding public hearings, so you will be able to speak.
Beautiful, thank you.
I'd rather not start.
And at that point also, we will
If-
have the complete plan. Right now, there's been a new plan which came out at the meeting in August, and I urge people, if you really want to see the entire plan, it's not the one that was on Facebook, on the village website. There's Dobbs Ferry TV, and you can go to the planning board meeting in August, and you can fast forward through and watch the entire presentation. There will also be, I don't know whether the AHRB has a public hearing or not, but they will also be working on the project. So that the public hearing, by the time it gets to the Board of Trustees, it will be the completed project as being submitted. So it's still being tweaked here and there, just so you know.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm happy to see so much interest, and I'm sorry that you all came out tonight, because it's been noticed in the agenda that was published that it was an approval. Anyway,
Is it possible to say something else about the process, just briefly?
I can't hear you.
Can I say something else about the process, just to add a little bit to? Just briefly,
Yeah. Niall, I'm just afraid I don't want to go through 20 people here.
You could speak to the Board of Trustees
Yeah.
about the process.
This damn meeting. You guys couldn't have a meeting when people were here.
The problem we're having is evidenced by all people here. People were unaware. And it could very well be that the building department has a process where you don't have to re-notify, but you should have to re-notify after a certain number of months. You just should. It's not
They did
ours,
notice.
it's not-
It was
No,
noticed.
No.
It was noticed in the enterprise.
No, everyone here would have been noticed.
Oh, come on.
There was, first of all, there was no notification was received before the first BOT meeting presentation of this, and that is a fact. I happened to be here just by accident. No one was here. The subsequent BOT meeting, no one came to present the project, and the room was filled with people with concerns. That is wrong. That should not have happened. And then subsequently, a huge amount of time goes by, and there's no re-notification. There was no
It was
re-notification.
noticed.
There was
So
no
you could
re-notification.
foil that information if you like.
And I'm not suggesting that it's wrong, I'm suggesting that the mistake was made as far as the re-notification was done. I'm suggesting that there has to be a process of mailing again.
There is a process.
A certain amount of.
And tenants, property
That
owners,
didn't happen.
the mailing goes to the property owner.
I know it goes
Not to
smoothly, I'm
tenants.
well aware of all of that, but it never happened.
Okay.
And that's why so many people are here now. Because after a few months, people were not aware that was even being presented. I mean, there's a problem with notification and clearly a fairly significant concern in the community that was not able to be aired to the public at the planning board, and that's not right. I mean, one way or the other, that should not have happened.
Can I ask a question, please? Just a question, no comment. Sorry, Ralph. I'm here really just to get some information, not on either side, actually. I just want to get some information. How would you, you've told us how we can go online and look at the television program. If you were to give me a better directive of how to get as much information, as much up to speed as I can, what would you tell me in terms of resources? Go to the village website and do what?
You go to the village website. On the top, I think it's on the top right section, there's something that says Dobbs Ferry TV. You click on that. There will then be a list of meetings. They'll have the planning board, the BOT meetings, the AHRB meetings, the zoning board meetings. They're all filmed. You then go to click on the planning board. There'll be a list of all the planning board meetings going back, I don't know how long, but it'll probably be the very first one will be the planning board meeting in August, and you click on that. And that will be the entire meeting was filmed. You can fast forward. I believe there are also subtitles that when you get to different sections, that you can fast.
Is there like a file where all the submitted resources or written materials have been submitted and filed on the website? If I want to just go in and see.
The
all
plans, the actual
paperwork.
plans?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
We're working on that, but no.
Yeah, I know the Board of Trustees has recently approved the purchase of a software program that will be doing that, but we don't have that
So to a
yet.
novice like me, I don't know how I'm gonna go in and hunt and peck for all this different material. I don't even
You
know
can,
what's
you
going
can
on.
come to
It's
the
not-
board meetings and see it there. But in the future, we are working on getting the
Well, I'm
documents
trying, so-
uploaded
But
online.
what kind of information are you looking for?
I'm looking to learn about what the submission is, what this contains,
Right.
how it complies
If-
with the existing zoning.
If you watch the meeting, I believe, it's a very extensive presentation that they gave at the August meeting. And a lot of that information is if you watch that.
That was the closed meeting? Was the
No, they closed
It
the
was-
public
it was an
hearing,
public
yes.
It was not a closed meeting.
It wasn't a closed meeting.
The public hearing was closed that day, but it was not a closed meeting. It was an open meeting. Right.
Yeah, and people actually did come and speak at it, so, but there's a substantial amount of information there. And again, as I said, it's gonna be before the AHRB, and the Board of Trustees will certainly have public meetings, and we'll make sure, a public hearing, and we'll make sure that it's noticed. I don't know, maybe we can even, I'm not promising this, but we can ask for an email blast or something to
Thank
go
you.
out.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate the fact that we're trying to just understand better.
Absolutely,
And I would
absolutely.
really appreciate it if we weren't negatively criticized for voicing our opinions and our desires when we come to these meetings. We don't know.
No, absolutely.
Thank you. So if we can, the first item on our regular agenda is to adopt the minutes for the planning board meeting of August 8, 2019. I've reviewed them and have no comments. Does anyone else have comments or corrections?
I do not.
I would move their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. The next item on our agenda is 42 Bel Air Drive, pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed new first floor addition and new parking area next to existing garage.
But, Mr. Chairman, I think,
Yes,
wait. I think there was some noise when you were acting on the last matter in the room.
oh, I went right past it. I'm
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Okay.
I think you're skipping.
115.
Hey,
115 Broadway.
yeah, no, I'm sorry. We're gonna hold off and do 115 Broadway first. I'm sorry. Item number 2 on the agenda, 115 Broadway, continuation of public hearing for site plan approval for proposed new parking area in the southeast corner of
Ava?
property.
Hi, I'm sorry, we missed one. We missed one before
Missed
you.
one,
You're
yeah.
gonna have to hold off a minute.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Yeah. Welcome back. Yeah, I think we have.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Chairman and trustees and others who are present. My name is Pat Krasnowski, and I'm the director of Cabrini of Westchester, also known as St. Cabrini Nursing Home. And with me this evening is Carmine Giuliano and his wife. Carmine is a trustee on the board of Cabrini of Westchester, and also Ralph Perugine, who is our consulting engineer for this project. This evening, I would like to speak on behalf of Cabrini to respond to some of the concerns that you've had with our application to build some more parking on our site. And I'll try to be brief, but I want to cover a number of points. The planning board has opined that Cabrini does not need additional parking. My response begins with a question: why would Cabrini apply to add parking at its own cost if it didn't need it? I can't think of any reason why it would do so.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a volunteer fire department.
Evacuation.
No, they're starting again.
I can't think of any reason why you would ask to build parking if we didn't need parking. We're a not-for-profit, faith-based corporation. We're committed to stewarding our resources wisely, justly, and for the benefit of those we serve. We have no money to spend on projects that are not for the benefit of the mission or people we care for. The planning board has requested that Cabrini investigate alternative areas on its site for the parking. This evening, I'd like to share with you that Cabrini began its formal study of possible locations for the additional needed parking spaces in September of 2018, a full year ago. At least 5 other areas were considered and rejected because they were either inadequate in space, too close to public view from Broadway, or required the removal of many trees. The area we chose for development is the most viable one. To date, Cabrini has spent more than $55,000 to determine the best site, prepare the professional designs and landscape designs to submit to the planning board, as well as to respond to subsequent requests that were made. It has been suggested by at least one person that Cabrini does nothing for the village. If that were true, it would still be unclear to me how that impacts on Cabrini's application to build parking on its own site. However, it's not true. As many of you know, Cabrini cares for elders of the village, both in the nursing home for long-term care, short-term rehabilitation care, as well as providing some village residents with care in their own homes. Cabrini employs village residents. It hosts public elections and other public events. Cabrini maintains a beautiful site of which the village can be proud. In addition, Cabrini contributes to the economy of the village, the nursing home. Its employees, residents, volunteers, students, and visitors patronize village restaurants, service stations, grocery stores, and other business in the village. The same is true of the clients, volunteers, and staff of Cabrini Immigrant Services right here on Main Street. Cabrini Immigrant Services, which is sponsored and managed by Cabrini of Westchester, the nursing home, provides after-school programs for the children of the village's elementary and middle schools. Cabrini provides special help with homework, language, culture, and nurture that these little ones require to succeed in school and in life. Their parents likewise are assisted, as are other adults with services, education, and support to become full members of this community who can articulate for themselves and for their families with dignity. I believe that this information about St. Cabrini Nursing Home and Cabrini Immigrant Services conflicts with the statement that Cabrini does nothing for the village. If by chance that statement, that we do nothing, is meant to say that we don't pay real estate taxes, then we're guilty. Not-for-profit corporations should provide community benefit instead, and Cabrini does that. One of the most often heard complaints from visitors at the nursing home is that we don't have enough parking. We have extended the designated parking for visitors who enter the entrance because many of them are as old and frail as our patients. In doing so, we displace employees who become frustrated and angry when they cannot find a spot to park. The planning board has asked us to stagger shifts, which we have done to the extent possible. You may not know that the nursing care staff cannot leave the patient floors until their replacements have arrived on the floor for duty. During the day, this occurs at the peak time for visitors and volunteers, in the mid-afternoon hours, about 2 to 4. So what I'm saying is people can't leave to make room for the other people. Cabrini has been working with Westchester County Rideshare to promote carpooling as you requested, transit check, and other alternatives as biking. There is some limited interest, but this will not resolve the need for additional parking at peak times. I recently did some research on zoning for parking for nursing homes and hospitals in some nearby villages and towns. In Hastings-on-Hudson, the zoning calls for 1 spot for every 2 beds, and 1 spot for each employee and regular other practitioners. Applied to Cabrini and only counting day shift employees, that would result in a required 354 parking spaces. Cabrini has 190 spaces and is asking to increase it to 215. In Tarrytown, the requirement is 2 spaces for each 3 beds and 1 for each employee. Again, only counting the day shift, that formula would result in a required 304 parking spaces. Again, Cabrini has 190 and is asking to increase to 215. Last, in the town of Greenberg, the requirement the requirement, which is based on gross floor area for healthcare facilities, would result in a requirement of an incredible 551 parking spaces. Cabrini has 190 and is asking to increase to 216. At this time, I believe we've responded to the concerns of the village regarding our real need for parking and regarding the selected site. One beautiful, lovely old tree will need to be removed, and 9 will be planted. The view is not obstructed because it was designed at a lower elevation than Broadway to minimize the impact on the viewshed of the river from Broadway. We believe we've done diligence. At this time, I respectfully ask the village planning board to work with us to accomplish this project, which will help reduce stress on visitors and employees, as well as reducing illegal parking in fire lanes and other unsafe parking practices on the campus. In closing, I ask you to approve and recommend this project to the village board. Thank you for your time and your attention. If you have any questions about the site that we have been looking at, et cetera, Mr. Perigin can respond to that. If you have any questions about what I've presented, I'd be happy to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think those of us that on the board did some careful study also of your parking situation by doing space counts, empty space counts at various points during the day. And I think, by and large, with 1 or 2 exceptions, and acknowledging that there were some cars parked in inappropriate places in the back, but traffic was well able to move through. It did not impede traffic at all. They were just there. We found very few instances that we studied, and we studied at least a dozen different times during the day where there were not empty spaces, not considering the visitor space. We understand the visitor space was separate, and if it was all empty, that didn't count as an empty space. It just did not seem to me, having done some of these, or some of my colleagues, that the situation is as dire as you suggest it is, at least compared to other situations. I think we have put you in touch with an organization that can help work with your staff to change their habits in terms of the way they access their work jobs. And it seems to me that the problem is not as bad and could be solved by some different habits on the part of your staff, using some parking spaces that are open on Broadway, which have not been utilized. I think the village feels, this board feels, and I think the village feels that the front lawn of Cabrini is one of the real treasures in our village, and to put a parking lot in front would be a scar on what is a beautiful setting. So,
with all due respect, I go back to my very first question this evening. Why on earth would we ever ask to build parking if we did not need it? If we did not have the pressure that we have from our visitors and staff? I believe what you say about your study. However, we're living the reality of people not having parking spaces when they come into work. And again, I say that you may not realize that people cannot leave their shift before the next shift.
I understand that.
And that creates a problem, and it's a real problem.
Yep.
And if you haven't looked at Broadway lately, St. Christopher's all the way up to Cabrini is blocked, and our driveway is also blocked for buses, school buses, to the extent that we can't even get in and out of it. So I try to understand where you're coming from, but I have to ask the question, why would we ever do this? Why would we ever go to this extreme to create parking if we did not need it? It's not something we can sell, it's not something we can give away, it's not something we can crowd. We need spaces.
Well, I think our answer would be based on talking among our board and with other organizations in the village, that there are other ways to change people's habits in terms of how they get there, whether they carpool, whether they take public transportation. You can, we found that it worked. We're working with, or these organizations are working with other not-for-profits in the village, and it's been successful, and we think that before we kind of put a scar on what is a beautiful, beautiful setting there, which is one of the nice things that not-for-profits do for us in the village, is to give us some open space and some very attractive settings. Before that happens, if it ever happens, I think we are saying that Cabrini needs to work on other alternatives than just building another parking lot.
Sir, with all due respect, we have taken your advice, and we have asked all of those people in to work with us, and they continue to work with us. However, we need to understand that our staff come from great distances. Some of our people come from not just the Bronx, they come from Brooklyn, they come from Rockland. They are working different shifts, they're going to another job after work. We can change a couple of people. Some people already do carpool, but, you know, I put myself in their shoes. I live in Bronxville, and if I couldn't drive to work, I don't know what I would do, because sometimes I have to be there early, sometimes I have to leave early, I have to work here late like this evening. Life isn't that simple for our folks. You know, it's not like they live down the street from the workplace.
Yeah, I understand.
And I understand wanting to keep a beautiful green spot. The first evening I was here, I told you that we relocated parking spaces that we permitted to have on the front of our property. Nobody asked us to. It's a different time. You may recall, we had about 25 parking spaces right planted in front of the nursing home. And we gave those up. These spaces that we're talking about are dropped down below Broadway. The line of sight is over them. I don't know what else to say, except that my mission is to take care of my residents in the nursing home, take care of my employees, to keep our residents happy, and to provide for their visitors and friends. My mission is not to keep a nice green space. I love a nice green space, but that's not the Bernie's mission.
Understand.
Our resources are intended for the care of the people that we serve. And just looking at the numbers for the villages surrounding us, and what they allow, not only allow but require of a hospital or a nursing home in terms of the bed count and the number of spaces, we are way under that number, way under that number. Unfortunately, we love Dobbs Ferry, and even if we didn't, we couldn't move to one of those villages. But, you know, please understand where we're coming from. There is no reason I would beg you, and I'm begging you, I'm groveling, to do this if it was not needed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say, since I accompanied Steve on some of these visits, I think, well, first of all, I just want to say, I don't know who said, I think one thing that bothers me a little bit is the premise of your letter is somehow a feeling on the part of this board or the village that we don't think Cabrini does anything for the village. I don't know if any,
It was said in this room.
by,
I don't know. I wasn't there the evening it was said.
well, I don't know who said it, but I'm telling you, that's not the sentiment of people here, okay? So that should be not part of what you need to present. And then I just say that I don't think you've convinced us that some mix of other, it's not like there's a silver bullet answer to these things. It's a combination of some of the stuff that Steve's talking about, the traffic demand management. Some of it maybe is the reconfiguration of some of the existing lots. There's a handful of spaces, we think more than you think, but there's a handful of spaces in the far back by the utility space. You've acknowledged that. There are spaces on I've never driven on Broadway. And part of the problem is I go by Broadway all the time. I don't work full-time anymore. I drive around a lot. I see spaces there all the time. So I just think we're not convinced yet that it's really, I think, and I think citing the zoning of what's required by other villages is really not a good strategy, since my answer to that would probably be they have hugely inflated parking standards, which is what you find typically in villages where the zoning codes were written whenever they were written, and if they haven't revisited some of these things, they have very much inflated requirements. I would tell them they should look at what they're requiring. So it's not a mean spirit, you know, I think you've presented this a little bit like it's a sort of a mean-spirited thing on our part, or on the village's part, or something out of spite or something. That's not what this is. This is a response to people, there are other volunteers in the village who put in thousands of hours collectively of work around environmental issues, around parking and traffic issues. There are concerns, we have to represent their concerns as well. So, I just want to be clear that this is not like us trying to, like a power trip or vindictiveness or anything else. We're not convinced. That's really what it comes down to. And I don't know how to resolve it further. I don't know.
If I may, again, I just wanted, I understand where you're coming from, and if I came across with that attitude, I'm sorry, but it indeed was said in this room within the past few months.
Well, that's not the sentiment of the village.
Does nothing for the village, and nobody counted it
Well,
at the time.
I'm countering it.
And,
That is not the way the village feels about Cabrini or the other institutions.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
No.
I was told by one of the prior mayors that it really does something for the village. So I've heard it with my own ears, but that's neither here nor there. There's nothing else I can say. I don't understand why you would not want to get our employees who are currently parking on your streets, off your streets, because there's very little parking available for anybody. Broadway, when I come to work and when I'm leaving work, is backed up all the way from St. Christopher's up to our driveway.
The
above-
traffic or the parking spaces are all used up on both sides of Broadway?
No, no,
I've
not-
never seen it, but I'm gonna go look.
Above ours going north, you don't see it because there's no parking signs in one area. There's another space where it's only parking on Tuesday. So if they were made into parking spaces, we would use them.
No, they are. Most of those spaces, there's at least 8 or 10 spaces that are available, I think, every day, except maybe one day of the week. So those would be very simple to use.
I will check them again. As far as paying more money for studies, for parking, all I can tell you is I would not be doing this if the parking weren't needed. We have the overflow between 1:32 to 4 o'clock. We can't do anything else with. And we have a lovely site. It is our property. We need more parking. This is what I need to carry out our ministry. That's what we do. That's our contribution.
Okay. Thank you. This is,
May I just
yes,
address
yeah,
one
please.
comment? Mr. Lane, you commented about the area adjacent to the transformer pad, that area, the generator pad, and I have stated previously that that area contains, and I have geotechnical data that will show that that area contains approximately 10 feet of organic materials on top of that embankment. In order to build a parking lot in that area, you would have to completely remove all that material, backfill with lightweight aggregate fills, and put those fills in different layers with geotextiles between them in order to make sure that embankment below was not impacted by that additional lower soil above. So it is a very expensive proposition, or far more than putting the parking barriers right now.
Right.
Far more expensive.
Can you present that? Did you submit that?
I did not submit it, but I have it here if you want to see it.
We'd like, well, I don't need.
Because
to see
you
now.
did submit a sketch.
Sketch.
I submitted a sketch, and I had at previous meetings identified that transformer pad and that generator pad is on what they are called 80-ton piles. 6 of them. Those piles are approximately 100 feet deep, is what I had previously stated. And that is still the case. I have a construction drawing for that particular pad, and I have the geotechnical data for that I can speak to you directly.
You can submit it to the board, to the building
If you want to
department.
see that data, I'm more than happy to submit it and share it with you, but again, it's not a very safe condition to be building upon that.
Well, we'd like to see it. We'd
I
like to see it.
understand, and I'm saying, I'm just reiterating what I had said previously, and now I have the supporting data from the prior geotechnical engineering.
And I think what the board is trying to say is you need to exhaust every possibility before going towards the front of the site and seeing that data, seeing everything. where it's located, that's all important to us to see.
This is a public hearing, this is a public hearing, and if anyone wishing, yeah.
My name is Corinne Galesso. I actually came for something that's happening later. I live at 189 Broadway, and I just want to say that I'm kind of in shock about, and I'm coming very late with what's happening here about Cabrini, but if you really cared about somebody's impression of Dobbs Ferry, then why don't you clean up that mess that's on Broadway, right next to Cabrini, where Windows on the World are. I mean, the weeds are literally up to my head. It's a disaster. I mean, it makes Dobbs Ferry look like a fool's place to live. So if you want to tell them, these people who are doing God's work, God bless them, to take care of older people, and you say it's not going to look nice, look at this space, look at the property next to theirs, and you tell me that that's okay, that Dobbs Ferry allows that to happen. Thank you.
Which side do you mean? Do you mean the St.,
The former, say,
Excuse me?
the former,
I can't hear you.
Livingston.
the Rudy's space? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Windows on the World. The weeds are up to here. They
Yeah.
had black fabric up there. They ripped it down. I've tried to talk to people on that property. They curse at me. They say vile things. They talk about the planning commission. But all I'm saying is, you know, yeah, they don't shovel when it snows, but even just as an eyesore, it's embarrassing. So if you're saying that you think the parking spaces are gonna make these people who do so much work for so little money, and you allow that to happen, to me, it's hypocritical. But thank you for the moment.
Thank you. Is that something that the village has control over, the maintenance of
We
a?
have issued multiple violations, and property owner keeps coming in, paying fines, doing it again, saying that he's coming back for new applications. We are aware that it's, it's an eyesore,
Yeah.
and we've been trying to deal with it.
Is there some way where the fines can be accelerated over time?
It's not easy. The courts don't want to,
I think there could be more fines but it requires going out every day and issuing a fine, finding a violation and issuing another violation.
You heard that it's privately owned and the building department is fining that owner every day and.
Not happening, right?
Well,
mean,
yeah, no,
what I'm saying is, how can
I
you-
couldn't agree with you more that it's
How can
just
you
a
believe people
terrible
look
eyesore.
pretty, But somehow bureaucratically that's allowed to happen. I'm embarrassed. I mean, when I have my friends come to Dobbs Ferry, it's like, I'm embarrassed.
I know, it looks horrible.
We should all be embarrassed about it.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Is there some rule where the village can do it and then bill them?
the judge can, if the judge decides to find against them multiple times and they refuse to do anything, then he can tell the village to hire somebody to do it and then put it on their taxes. But it's a big undertaking to renovate a whole lot. So, that would be a stretch for the court.
Okay.
So
Well, it could
we're
just cut
hoping-
down the
We're
weeds.
hoping that they come in soon with a new presentation and that it moves along through the process, because it is a valuable piece of property. They invested in it to build it up and improve it, but as we all know, that was turned down, the first application. It's been in court for years and should be coming back with a new application.
Okay, thank you. That doesn't get your weeds cut, I'm afraid, but,
Yeah, I mean, somebody who does very could go and just, I mean, I pull the weeds out of the memorial around the corners, nobody
Yeah,
else is doing
yeah.
it, but
thank you.
I'm just saying, if you're
Yeah,
telling people.
yeah.
Is it a possibility?
It doesn't look nice, that doesn't-
Possibility for Cabrini to rent some of that space as a parking lot?
It's a private owner, so have to deal with them.
Yeah, it wouldn't be permanent.
When Rudy's was there, we had access and we shared parking.
Yeah, yeah,
Makes sense.
yes, yeah. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Lou Wyman. I live at 342 Palisade, and I have looked at the plans a little bit, obviously not as close as you are. But I'd like to know if anything is being considered as far as it relates to alternative means of transportation. You hear a lot of talk about parking, traffic, and I mean, the trend in cities and urban areas, which I think downtown Dobbs Ferry is a small microcosm of that, it's an urban area, is to go with walkable streets, livable cities. In New York City, there's regulation where any building, any new construction, residential or commercial, has to put in indoor bicycle parking, one space for every 7,500 square feet of residential or commercial space. And this could help a lot with people that are going down to the train, or that are living in the building, if the building goes forward, which hopefully, I'm opposed to it, going forward as it stands.
Are you talking about this parking lot for Cabrini?
No.
I think it's a different, you're talking about a different application.
Sir, this is only a public hearing on the Cabrini application, so if you're having a comment on something else, this isn't the time for it. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. It never got there. Is there comments from any of the other board members?
Should we extend this for
Well-
any other?
I think we're in kind of a dilemma. I think we are prepared tonight to make a motion to decline the application. I'm finding it hard to see how we're going to find a way to find a middle ground on this.
But we would like to.
We would like to, but I'm not seeing that that's possible at this point. You saying something important?
I'll let you do that.
I just think that, your terminology as deny is incorrect, because this is approved or denied by the Board of Trustees. So what you would be doing is writing a positive or negative recommendation back to
You're
the
right.
Board of Trustees.
You're right, sorry. Sorry, so we'll, yeah, so, that's right. Well, I look for the consensus of the board. I think, I'm feeling that we're not, yes,
Comment to the trustee or Cabrini. I'd like to hold one more month so we can, one of the board members said something to the effect of presenting more evidence or more, trying to convince you.
That feedback area was my plan.
And what else we can come up with meanwhile, so if that's agreeable to the chair and to the board members.
I would agree with
Yeah.
that. I would support
We'd
that.
like to come to a solution
I would
that's
support, yeah.
beneficial to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
But
you.
I think, yeah. I just like, but what is it specifically that, like, how are we not, there is the issue of the parking in the rear side. A lot of the issues that have been raised have to do with traffic demand management things and so on, that what is gonna be demonstrated between now and a month from now? I'm not trying to say this because I'm trying to push a negative recommendation. I want to make sure that we're not just kicking the can
Yeah.
down the road another month for all of us. So, yeah, I think, and I just want to be clear about what exactly do we think is going to happen in the next month? What would it take to convince the board that this is necessary? And I don't know if it means, I've forgotten now, with all of the things that have been submitted, has there actually been who has done the kind of formal traffic study or parking study of what's available including Broadway?
Prominent Design Engineering, that's who I represent, and one of our staff members did submit a report to that effect about parking and the plan for the parking. That was submitted approximately 2 months ago.
Yeah, I remember when we got that, and what surprised me was it was at great variance with the traffic studies that I did and Mr. Lane did at various times during the day, where there were only very few where there were.
We had a staff
Are
member
there-
out there counting parking for the entire day for 2 days. So
What are the times that you would say we would most likely see the worst condition?
2 to 4, approximately from between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. when there is because of the shift change, there is an overlap in the parking due to one set of staff members coming in and the second set of staff members leaving at the end of their shift. There's that overlap, which is distinct. And it is the nursing staff that they can't, as Mr. Krasnowski said, they can't leave until the new person is on the
Right.
floor and taking over control of that, of the staff. So that overlap is a distinct occurrence in this facility. That it can't be stopped. It's not something that could be.
I'm not looking to stop it, I'm looking to.
I mean, it's not something that a habit can be changed. It's, you got vehicles, as she said, staff members coming from far away, and those things, the replacement staff members going out, so it's a difficult thing to manage by doing what you're saying in terms of the transportation from that.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I think one of the things that would help this is to find ways so that there are fewer staff members that are using cars. That's what the demand management thing is, and that takes time, and there's buses, and there's trains, and a lot of things. And it's not necessarily easy to change people's habits, and,
Well, it's the type of staffing you'll have to understand. Nursing staffing comes from, it's not a local staffing. You correct me if I'm wrong. Nursing is not something that is necessarily local staffing. That staffing comes from all over. It's not something that you can say, okay, they're village residents. They're not, they're definitely not all village residents. There may be some that are. But you have nursing staff, that, as she said, coming from Rockland, Dutchess, Bronx, Brooklyn. So, they're coming from far away, Connecticut. Okay? So they're all coming from a distance, and that is what is, and you get your nursing staff where you can. It's not something you can say, okay, I'm gonna hire nurses from top service. That may not necessarily happen.
understand.
Is there a valet parking, valet parking available, or?
No.
And is that 7 days a week? The 2 to 4, the shift changes, is that the shift? I'm sorry. I'm just curious if the shift changes is Monday to Friday, or is that a consecutive 7 days that this happens?
It happens 7 days a week. The difference on Saturday and Sunday is that most of the office staff, administration staff, non-direct care are off.
And how many people is that approximately, you think? Is it 10?
I'm sorry, I would really have to.
Oh, okay,
calculate
that's
that.
fine. I'm just
But
curious.
It leaves a lot more spaces open.
Uh-huh,
The
but then you have
home-
visitors.
The home care department isn't there. There are more visitors, but
Mhm.
there are fewer staff. So we don't have that same tightness on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And is it possible for the office staff to park further from the site? One of the issues that we have, there's a lot of discussion in town about the parking situation in the downtown. And one of the issues that we have to get at is to what extent are the people who actually work in those stores or own those businesses feeding the meter all day? And there is a lot that we've created, and I think one of the things that has to be looked at in the downtown in terms of parking is whether or not there's some policy about the people who actually work in those stores using up the spaces that are supposed to be used by the shoppers. So I guess that's the kind of thing that I just, that people who maybe maybe they have to walk 2 blocks to get in order to leave those other spaces open. I don't know.
I have a question to Mr. Brosnahan. there's no valet why isn't there any valet parking? Or why wouldn't you try to do that?
We did look into it when this parking issue arose with Big Anna Rising 3 years ago, and we could not afford it. We couldn't afford to pay the shifts, and we certainly, visitors to the residents in the nursing home, certainly, they come every day, some of them are going to
No,
pay valet parking.
no, I was thinking in terms of what the shift change, because the valet could, they could put one car in front of another, and they know which cars are blocked in, and they sort of manage the parking lot in a more efficient way.
And then what would happen later? Well, you know what, I'm not going to argue the point.
Just, no, I mean, it's just an idea. I'm just trying to help here.
Could I ask approximately, you say that your biggest problem is during the shift change, when you have that overlap, and I understand that people can't be left alone. How long approximately does it take for one person to go off and the other person to take their place?
Who knows? I very honestly, it's very difficult to answer that. The shift ends at a specific time, 3 or 3:30, depending on what role we play. And the people who are coming in have to park, punch in, be clothed, and go to their place of work in order to relieve that person.
Right.
Supposedly at 3 o'clock.
So a half hour?
So, I would say it runs both ways because the shift report.
So my
it's
point
science.
being is, so it could be a half hour, it could be an hour. I'm just thinking,
I would say at least an hour and a half.
so was there like 30 people times 2, or is it more, or? I'm just wondering if you could say if you had 30 people all changing at 3 o'clock, could you have 10 changing at 2:30, 10 at 3, 10 at 3:30, and sort of stagger the shift change like that? Would that,
No.
no?
Most of our shifts.
Just
are
flat
designed
no?
by you. Yeah, it is a flat no.
But
because-
I'm wondering why.
Because of the way scheduling is done. We're talking about scheduling 70 people and trying to create a flow that accommodates parking. It just isn't reasonable. Think about running a business and trying to do that. It's like a full-time job. Does the schedule, who's leaving? Oh, there's union rules as well. No, I appreciate where you're coming from. It's not reasonable.
Does the non-union staff, are they on a basic 9 to 5 hour, or are they 7 to 3?
The majority are 9 to 5. Yes. But we also have on evenings and nights some that are. These people work really hard. If you put yourself in their shoes, and you're coming into work 7, 8 hours, lifting people, toileting people, feeding people, and then you're trying to get onto your second job because you need 2 incomes, and you can't get your car up, you can't get your car in, it's traumatic. It does not help staffing, I can assure you.
Well, this is it's a difficult situation because we've heard at previous meetings from our beautification committee, the tree commission, the conservation advisory board. There are very strong feelings about the need to retain the green front yard that is so nice at Cabrini. So it's we understand it's difficult.
My mother Cabrini, Saint Cabrini, actually lived and walked the streets of Dobbs Ferry. She bought that property in 1914. She bought the property and created an orphanage there to take care of orphans, and then it was a school and so on and so forth. We're still trying to do ministry with our Mother Cabrini's ministry, and I love trees, I love the green, but we need parking to take care of our people.
Has anybody at Cabrini ever talked to your next-door neighbors about their schedule? Because I noticed that they tend to park mostly or heavily on Broadway, and they also have a lot of interior parking lots too. But they tend to be more on a school schedule, I think. I mean, you've got some permanent residents there. But I would think that they would have, at certain times of the day, a considerable amount of space created both on their property and on Broadway. Because they did, I mean, they're on a school schedule, so the buses come and take the kids home, the teachers don't stay there, I don't think.
Right, but during the day, the teachers are there and their lots are full. I can explore that further because I'm meeting with them tomorrow morning.
Be interesting. I just haven't done a traffic study at there, but I think it would be interesting to do, to see how their movement is.
Well, ironically, we are meeting tomorrow morning. I'm not sure exactly what the topic is, and I said to my friends, maybe they want to use our parking.
We'll see.
I understand the tree commission making comments about some of the few trees along that are taken down. And we're not saying that we can't do some minor modifications to the parking lot as is, and I think I had presented that too, where we took the parking lot, rotated it slightly, to help save 1 or 2 more additional trees.
Right.
Now, that's still a possibility as an option.
Right.
I just want to put that out.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So hold over to the next meeting.
Yeah, what's the will of the board? Well,
That would be my choice.
That would be my choice, too.
all right.
Maybe we should discuss whether or not we want to, as a group, try to get there between 2 and 4
Yeah,
on a couple of days
yeah,
and see for ourselves what
okay.
is going on.
I have actually one more question. If the 25 spaces that you currently are asking for, at some point, do you think you would actually need more in the future? More spaces, more parking? Or you can't answer that?
I can't imagine why we would need even more, except for the fact that more people.
Because right now, the actual facility is full. So theoretically, you probably wouldn't need more.
So, I mean,
It's very hard to predict because as you know, healthcare lives under such high regulations. But Mr. Perigin was saying that right now on the docket in Albany is having mandated staffing. Right now, we do not meet the mandated, what they're proposing is mandated staffing.
Mhm.
We believe that staffing should be based on the needs of the individual patients and the outcomes. And our outcomes are good, we have 5 stars for quality, and we don't think we need more staff. That doesn't mean they're not gonna make us hire more staff. So, I mean, it's possible, I don't wanna say no, but right now, I think we're building for a current and, I would say 10-year Eugene. I really don't see why it would be worse, and you could hold me to that. One of the reasons why we have a lot more cars, I would say too, in addition to people having access to automobiles, is that we have, within the nursing home, we have between 60 or 70 religious sisters and priests and brothers who are now patients in the nursing home. And more so than even your own family, they visit one another, they come in groups, they're there all day, some of them. They act as semi-volunteers while they're there. We've noticed that also is added to our parking, and very often, before we designated visitor parking as we have, they were the people that were letting us know. You know, on certain terms, as your first grade teacher may have, if you had sisters in school, that needed more parking. I don't see that, I don't see a huge need, and I would look at Broadway to see if we're reading the signs wrong. I'll look at them, and that's not the way I interpreted them, but we will look.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Could I ask your engineer, do you have software that does 3D rendering? Computer?
Depends on what you're looking for. I may have.
Can you do a 3D software and show different angles from Broadway as to whether, you know, what you would see as walking or driving by over the parking lot, or if you would see the parking lot?
So with what we've done right now, this site is not modeled in 3D except for the existing conditions, so it might be, it may be possible, but right now I'd have to see how much time and effort that would cost the client to do that, because it's not, the proposal is not modeled in 3D.
Right. I was just saying, just to the point that you were saying it's sunken, and you would see over it if you could prove that through.
It's approximately 6 to 8 feet.
Right, if you could show something on a computer-generated software program, that might,
Well, there is a section of it.
Showing contouring and just grades without any of the amenities like curves and stuff like that, I could probably do that. We're gonna look into it. I'll look into it. Do our best to make it happen.
All right.
All right, thank you.
All right, I move that we continue the public hearing in our next meeting.
Second.
Second, in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 3, 42 Bel Air Drive, pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed new first floor addition and new parking area next to existing garage. That didn't turn out the way I thought.
Too bad they can't use some of the Livingston.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just sitting there.
There's
Clean, they get clean enough.
maybe St. Chris.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Give your name, introduce yourself and your firm, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Cole is here as well in case there are any questions that he could answer. And we also have some neighbors from the neighborhood with us tonight. So the application was submitted, showing, well, I'm going to start by, showing a few photographs of the house and,
You want to back up one, please?
this is the house, which is, situated at the corner of Bel Air Drive and, Buena Vista. So as you can see, here's the front of the house on Bel Air. And then, the property is a corner lot and it has the shape of a triangle. So we have the front of Bel Air, we have a corner, we have the Buena Vista Drive, and we have the neighbors to the north, to this house. The project consists of 2 parts. One part is a 1-story addition on the side of the house. It is approximately 100 square feet, and it consists of a new powder room and a laundry room being added on the side of the house. It's a very small flat area, and there is very, I would say, insignificant impact on the site and on the planning issue. This is part of the project. Here's the elevation where you can see the existing house, and in place of these 2 windows, there is the new bump out, which has the powder room and the laundry room. Looking at the front and the back of the house, you see a little bit of it here, and you see a little
So in terms of serving the car needs of this particular property, this is not sufficient. This is a young family with a couple of small children, and they, both have cars and have friends and family coming, and as it happens, the streets are really narrow. Both Buena Vista and Bel Air are only about 15 feet wide, and that leaves very little available in terms of parking on the street. And in fact, about a year ago, one of their cars was hit and sustained many thousands of dollars in damage and had to be paid for. So they have a feeling of urgency of actually being able to park the cars off the street and avoid this kind of problem. For that reason, back to the proposed parking area, we have shown something, and then again, in response to the question which came up, I sent in yesterday another drawing, which perhaps hasn't been able to get to everybody. And in this drawing, I'm showing both the topography and the parking layout. And so as you can see, the intent is to park 2 cars in the new area and have that extra parking in that garage in case it's needed. There were other questions that came up in the review, which had to do with the slopes and the steep slopes. So I did some analysis. If you look at the entire area of the side of the house, the slope is approximately 70%. So it's not a steady slope. As we look more closely at this area of work, it goes to about 25%, and then at the very corner of the property, of the proposed parking, we're looking at about 29%. I also looked at the slope, which is the Buena Vista Drive, and the street runs at about 18% slope. So, the slopes are there, but they are not exceedingly steep. So that's something we wanted to address. And then what I'm going to show is that in order to better manage the proposed parking, the idea is to create a 2-tiered terrace solution. One is the actual retaining wall, which contains the parking area, and then there's a secondary lower wall, which allows for the walls to appear less tall and allows for a planting area and just makes the whole idea more appropriate for the neighborhood, which has the single family smaller scale house. Looking at it from the street, you see there's a fantastic fence, and then looking at the looking from Buena Vista and from Bel Air, this is the face of the garage and the proposed parking solution. You can also see here, here's the old garage, the main retaining wall, the planting area right here, and then the stone wall to manage the grade. We have started going into the working ground space and started following the regulations which have to do with the slope of the parking area that is required to go back to the street and that is required to provide drainage and all that. So that is still in works and proposed and will require further details and clarifications in the construction drawing stage.
Well, that's interesting. I see as you mentioned that the village engineer has given you a fair amount of homework for this. So,
Yeah, I have responded to the first 6 points.
that's all right.
Mr. Chair, I think one of the major concerns is that second spot, whether it hangs over the road or not, or if you have to put a jog in the wall or not. I think that should be looked at closely, but.
Let me go there so that I can, see the car.
To make it deeper, is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yeah, because you see when she had the second car there was very compact. How long is that second car?
So this is a.
It's a very short car.
SUV, which is, this, you know, it may be a little misleading because this is the SUV, which is, 7 feet wide and 16 feet long. So this is a full-size car.
I think the drawings have been compressed somehow.
Oh, no, it's true, actually,
Yeah.
the screen that's compressed.
Yeah, the screen has squished them.
If you look
Oh,
at-
Is that right?
Yeah.
If you look at the screen, which is a circle, you'll see the oval.
Yeah.
Yes, there's an optical illusion to that, for sure.
Yeah.
And we actually looked at it just the other day.
Let's build it that way.
And this garage, which looks like a rectangle, really is a square.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think
It shows on the drawing.
it's being squished by the projector.
So the concern is that that second car overhangs into the street. That's
Right.
the concern.
Oh, well,
They-
this is a 16-foot car, and there's about, I'm gonna say 20 foot of space, so it doesn't actually, this is the property line right here. And as you can see, there's still a couple of feet in front of the car.
So do you have 18 feet from the property line into the wall?
Let me make sure I understand your question.
So not from the curb, from the property line
Yes.
into the end of your parking space, you should have 18 feet for
Yes.
a required
I'm going
parking
to-
spot.
I'm going to say we do because, if we look here, where I'm showing the setback, here's a 25-foot setback, and I know the car is 16 feet, so I would have that room to have 18 feet there.
So
Yeah.
just show that on your next submission.
Okay.
And are there concerns with backing out onto the street?
Right, so this is something that came up, and let me just go back to that, there was also a concern about the viewpoint, which I can address at the same time. The question that came up in the review was that there was a viewpoint number 71. Here's the lot right here, and there's a viewpoint 71. So that viewpoint, I would say, is situated right at the fork. And then if you look at the property, it's the viewpoint on the plan is somewhere here. So here's the old garage, here's the house, and here's the parking area. So the viewpoint is somewhere else. We're not actually at the viewpoint. And here's the intersection that you just asked about. So again, you know, the street is 15 feet wide. The SUV is 16 feet wide. It's actually extremely difficult to imagine. We actually looked at some schematics in the process of having the parking maybe a little lower down the street, and it is very difficult to make the turn. Whereas the fork of the intersection provides a very easy place to back out and leave. And that really presents an opportunity to do that safely without, I'm going to go back to the pictures I was showing before. If you look at this area here, here's the proposed parking area. And it just gives you that little extra help that you need to come out of there and turn without having to do a very difficult, multiple K-turn going in and out. So it's kind of perfectly situated to do that.
If you could demonstrate those turning maneuvers on the plan as well, that would be helpful.
All right. Are you saying that you agree that it's helpful to have that intersection together? I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't take advantage of it if it's there, right? I mean,
Yes.
I can demonstrate that with
Well, demonstrate what you're showing, so you don't have to demonstrate, demonstrate that what you're showing works, that's what I'm saying.
All right, not a problem.
Because making multiple turns in the street, like you said, is not a good
Not a
thing.
good thing.
No.
Yes, and there is not much visibility, you really don't want somebody coming past at you when you're trying to get in and out.
Correct.
So that doesn't help.
Correct.
How tall would the combined retaining structure be? The two walls that are going to make up the retaining wall structure, how tall is that in total?
So let me refer to the dimensions here. So what happens is, the retaining wall, which actually retains the slope, ends up being about 6 feet tall. But then about 2.5 feet of that becomes filled by the lower wall. So the lower wall is maybe a little less than 3 feet, and then you see another 3 to 4 feet of the original wall, which sort of makes it look pretty scaled and not overwhelmingly tall. And we are also proposing plantings to, further soften the appearance.
Thank you.
I think we should call for a public hearing at our next meeting.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Can I ask a question? Is it possible for us, while we're waiting for the public hearing next month, to go forward to the architectural review?
Yes.
Is that all right?
Well, Patty said yes, so.
You make me do it, that's okay.
Yes.
Just so we can try to make it.
Does that
Yes.
do we need to refer it then, Ed? Is that the right action?
No,
It'll just go?
We always let them go simultaneously.
Thank you for a very thorough presentation.
Yes. yeah.
Very nice.
With very clear pictures.
Yeah.
Indeed. Next item on our agenda, item number 4, 12 Irving Place, pre-submission conference for proposed new one-family residence with two-car garage. I don't see anybody moving toward the microphone.
This is 12 Irving.
12 Irving Place.
This was the tear down, right?
It was,
Yeah.
yes, they got approval for the demo, and now they're supposed to be back for the new house.
Right.
I guess
Oh,
not.
He's here,
No.
Yes?
fell
No?
asleep.
No? Okay.
He's here.
No, he's here.
No. He's coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there he was.
Yeah,
Where'd Dan go?
it should start right up again, and we'll open up the. push it to the right.
Should ask every meeting for volunteers for the planning board. Next meeting, we have to ask for volunteers for the planning board to the audience. And we just get up from my seat and say that.
If you want to speak.
We can invite the Cedar Street people back too.
Good evening.
I'm just having a little hard time finding my drive on this computer.
It looks like it's loading. Is it a PC drive? Macintosh?
Is it that?
You could do a search for the name.
I'm not sure if that's gonna be.
It looks like it's downloading files. Spreading your virus through Adobe.
It's the Matrix.
You traditionalist here. So it's hard to remember, that's not really our purview, you know, it's HRB. Pretty possible not to have an opinion.
At this.
But it's just an initial proposal for the house, right?
Yeah. I mean, he gave us this.
Just get some kind of award for brevity.
Right.
The entire project.
Do we,
11 by 17.
to the applicant, do we need more than this?
George, did you have more than just this?
No, this is what I had.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Well, you're smarter than we are, so I think we should look at this.
so
That's the list.
does he have,
So I do have a question about how the lot width is increasing.
He's not even listening.
yeah. Hey, Ed, ask him if he needs any more than this, because we have this already.
Yeah, it's a pre-submission and we've got the plan,
So
maybe.
maybe without a.
Yeah. We have the plan here.
Maybe you could just start trusting the board with what you'd like to do.
Because we have this in front of us.
Oh.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Casper Korsky. I'm the owner of the 12 Irving property. So, last month, we've been here and we asked for permission to demo the existing house on the property.
Right.
Which we got approval for. We made a very basically sketches of what we would like to put up on the property. So there are a few things related to it. First thing is that this is a corner property, so we have Ogden and Irving. And what we propose to do is to actually change the orientation of the house. The current house faces Irving, so we would like to change the front of the house to Ogden. So if this is basically if the house gets turned around, then there is, I guess, prevailing setback. So what we are asking for is if the house basically gets approved to be turned, if Irving can get a 10-foot setback. So that's our one of our questions to the board this evening. The second one is we have a couple basically versions of how the house may look like. We have basically in the middle of the sheet there is an elevation shows a hip roof. Because of the sky exposure from Irving, and we would have to put the corner of the roof, which turns it into a hip roof. From the owner's standpoint of view, if the board would approve it, we would prefer to do a gable end roof, which we are in, basically encroaching the sky exposure, which is shown
He
now
likes this one.
basically elevation on the bottom right corner. And I guess the third thing that I would like to speak to the board today is the sidewalks. We have currently the sidewalk ends as we are approaching Ogden. We're going up towards the Irving, the corner of Ogden and Irving. That's the last, basically where, that's the point where the sidewalk stops. So we know that we're going to have to extend the sidewalk. The question is whether we would have to do so on Ogden or both on Ogden and Irving. So those are three topics that I would just need a little bit of a direction, basically from the board on how to proceed with this property.
Right.
So the side setback is 10 feet on both sides?
No, yes, on both sides is 10 feet.
After you turn the house?
Yes, if we turn the house, the side setbacks on both sides is 10 feet, considering that Ogden is the front of the house.
Okay. So the sky exposure plane condition would happen on both sides of the house?
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right.
These are two front, on a corner lot is treated as
Much
two
better
front
than
yards,
this.
right?
It is, yeah.
No, we pick one.
Oh, you get to
This
pick
one
one.
works, it's compliant.
Okay.
Except for sky exposure, and that would be either the hip or the gable. And I would suggest that, he's gotta come back with, some more detail, larger plans, bigger scale, the garage elevations, the driveway cut details, the drainage calcs, and some floor plans, and the full elevations of all the sides of the house. But as we're going over the site plan, I would suggest we go to the Architectural Review Board to see if they are willing to accept the sky exposure, breaking into the line, with the gable.
Yeah.
Or whether they're gonna ask for the hip.
Yeah.
So we can do that concurrently.
I would need to just mention that on Irving, it's a very short street, so none of the houses on Irving actually face Irving except the current house on, that we've purchased. So if we turn the orientation of our future house towards Ogden, there is not going to be any front-facing to Irving houses. So this would basically, I guess, in my opinion, look better from both Ogden Place and Ogden Avenue. And second thing is that, if we look at the houses on Irving, I think that the sky exposure is basically all of those houses have, a gable end facing this street. So we're hoping that, that may be an option for us to build actually with the two gable ends.
Yeah, I think facing Ogden is a good plan, and it complies with the setbacks, but the sky exposure plan is the purview of the Architectural and Historic Review Board, so you should go to them as soon as possible to get their opinion.
Okay. And I guess with the sidewalk, that was the last question that we had is, as I mentioned, that the sidewalk currently ends as we travel on Ogden and we approach Irving. That's the corner that basically the sidewalk ends. There is no sidewalks on Irving. And the question would be whether the board would like to see both sides, with the sidewalk, which means Ogden and Irving, or only Ogden would be acceptable.
Yeah. So there's no sidewalks.
Is there, is there any elevation change across the lot, or is it flat? Pretty flat?
It's- Can you say?
Is there an elevation change from Ogden, across from Ogden back to the lot? Or is it just?
No,
It's just flat?
It's flat.
It's a pretty flat property.
It's,
Within a couple feet, but
Okay,
yeah, it's flat.
all right.
I'd like to comment about the sidewalk on Irving Place. Bear in mind, there's a rather huge tree.
And we don't want to lose a good tree.
The
Yeah.
one that's shown in the corner of the property here.
I don't know,
This-
it's in the village right of way.
There's this guy.
So the tree is basically, if we look at the plan, is basically on the side of the driveway.
Trunk is
If we
probably
look
right
at
where
the,
the sidewalk is.
Yeah.
the plan where the driveway actually touches beyond the Irving, on the left
This
side,
must be-
yes, there is, in the village's right of way, there's a very nice tree.
Yes, it's in this corner somewhere.
And is that tree in your
It's
new
this.
driveway?
It's this
I think
big.
the
Yeah,
driveway.
right, he was just looking, on here where it is.
I mean, it may have to be a little bit
It's,
closer
here.
to west, but I think we can
Or
work
here.
with the tree.
Yeah, so it's like right here.
Mhm. But he was asking about the sidewalk on Ogden.
Yeah.
Well, I think the sidewalk in Ogden is imperative, but I think
Yeah.
that the board should have a site visit, or, independently, and just form an opinion about Irving Place.
Yeah, okay.
And there are no existing sidewalks on Irving Place?
No.
No, but we try to get sidewalks even when they don't connect to anyone, thinking that in future we'll get more.
So
And
they could start-
Ogden is a well-traveled street that could use sidewalks.
Yeah.
It's got a bike lane on it too, right?
Yeah,
It's got the bike lane on it.
it's got the multi-purpose lane,
Multi-purpose
it's a
lane.
bike pedestrian path.
So,
Yes, and the lane is on property side.
I mean, obviously this is just a pre-submission conference, but I think that there isn't really enough, I get your intent of what you're trying to build, but I think it's kind of hard to evaluate this from such a spare presentation, even though this is preliminary. And I think one of the things that would really would be for, I'm looking at the little aerial that you have in the corner. I think it'd be good to show, which we've asked, not uncommon for us to ask applicants to show the larger context with the footprints of the other existing buildings so that, excuse me, so we can just get a sense of the scale of the footprint compared to the, compared to the larger neighborhood. So, going 5 or 6 properties or whatever in each direction and showing, you could even superimpose, well, I don't know I won't tell you what the best way to do it graphically would be, but I think that, that, in my mind, that's one of the things that's really kind of missing. We also sometimes ask for lengths, like an elevation, it would be along Ogden or let's say Irving Place, that also would show some number of properties in each direction so that there would be some context for this elevation, like how high it is relative to the immediate adjacent structures. And so from my perspective, that's what's missing is that sense of the context and drawings that would represent the context.
And it's also helpful if you show the other buildings on Ogden so that we could look at whether the prevailing setback of the front yard is, it's
Yeah.
20 now, and if the others are less than that, you might adjust it, or if that matches the others, then it's a good.
Yeah, so I think it's mostly, like, in my mind, it's largely a context thing. And I'm sure the AHRB will also, they'll appreciate it if they, especially when it comes to the sky exposure plane, if you show to scale the adjacent properties, and then they'll have more to go on in terms of evaluating whether it's okay to waive it or not.
Absolutely. So then we'll prep that for, I guess, next meeting, and we'll have that ready. So a couple properties surrounding this property will have this done, that shouldn't be done.
Okay, good.
And I think your answer about the sidewalk is that you will need a sidewalk on Ogden.
Yes.
Good. I think we should, I don't know, be ready for a public hearing next time. It might be a little premature, but,
Yeah, we've got to see the plan first.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it is. It's kind of hard to tell what this is. It's kind of hard to tell what this
Yeah,
really
okay.
is yet.
All right, we'll continue the pre-submission at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 5, 40 DeVoe Street, continuation of application for site plan approval, proposed redevelopment of property, 3 attached houses. Somewhere in here.
So good evening, Patty Steinschneider from Gotham Design. We've had a couple of meetings, you closed the public hearing at the last meeting. You have made a straw poll of a preference between the options that we're looking at. And we have moved forward with further development of that scheme. Hudson Engineering, who was at the last meeting, has done the site engineering and has submitted that. I know Pond Engineering has a number of questions, but it sounds like George and Mike Stein are doing a good job working all that through. And I don't know that there's anything really new to say. Obviously, as we were just talking, we've shown this stuff before, the context that this is in.
Yeah, can I just say, since you're still here, could you go back to that plan?
Sure.
It-
Okay.
That kind of scale and level of abstraction is really useful.
This is very sophisticated. You have to understand, to get this. You
Yeah, I
have to
know.
go online to GIS and Town of
It's-
Weaver.
right.
You've got all the information right there. It's helpful.
Yeah, sure. Pray do.
And then, you've seen all this before. I mean, there's more information on here, but I think, it's all pretty straightforward. We did all the analysis of the site coverage, how much of it's building, how much of it is paving. And okay, we also provided a landscaping plan. I guess it's very large. So the idea here is we've, foundation-based plantings, we've added trees, we've got 3 large trees across the back, which I think would give a nice screening, breaking down the sunlight in a positive way. We propose these as the kind of trees that have small leaves on them, but have a good stature. So smaller trees across the end of each of the terraces that are behind the units, which helps give a little bit of articulation to that space. We also proposed 4 flowering trees across the front, but Pond Engineering was not impressed by our tree selection. So they said they think the idea of dogwoods there are not a good idea. We're working with Wayne Cahill on another project, so I'll try and hit him up for a freebie on what he thinks would be a good street tree, which would also be something that doesn't get big, and to give maybe some nice flowering. I mean, a lot of the trees that we went through years ago, we've now learned are terrible trees to use in Bradford pears, even the plums and stuff like that, are problems. So finding the right kind of tree for that is a good idea, and we will make sure that that happens. This is the drawing that was submitted by Hudson Engineering, which goes into the storm drainage. They've done all the calculations and those things that just too difficult for me to understand, so they work all that out with George and Hun so that they can have all those things work properly. Floor plans haven't changed, elevations haven't really changed though. One of the things that came up, I had a conversation, brief one with Dwight, regarding what you were talking about on the other house, the sky exposure plane. And we have penetration to the sky exposure plane as we anticipated on both sides. We also have, this actually shows a little bit clearer, coming into it. It's really not possible to have a 2-story structure in these areas on the site if we are under the sky exposure plane. What we did do is we looked at the street for that, and we discovered there is a house down here, that little red house that's down by the park, that does comply. It's the only one, actually. This one looks like it complies, but then when you realize they're facing, the street, and if you do their side yard, they're right into it. We blew that up a little bit, so that you can kind of see that we're just about the same kind of intrusion. You know, if you look at this relatively, some of these houses are actually even more in it than we are. So I think that makes that fairly clear.
Again, to the previous applicant, this is exactly right on. If you, whether, I mean, love or like the architecture, I'm not saying anything about that, but in terms of presentation, clear about what the context is.
Do you have any need to see the renderings again, or you've seen all that stuff? And it's been a long meeting so far, things that were supposed to be talking about, it's a good meeting. So any questions that you have, you can close the public hearing, but I think we're in good shape. I'm not sure if the resolution has been prepared.
We did draft a resolution in the event you were ready to act on this. We did have questions that have, I think, been at least partly resolved as to how the common area ownership would work on the property. It's an unusual and concerning issue that you have what looks like 3 townhouses that might be fee simple. So you have your driveway, you have your utilities, but that's not the way it really works. It's a 3-family house. And that common area, those driveways are all, and all the utilities coming in from the street until they get into the building are common area owned. So we did put in the draft resolution and ran that by Dan, some special additional language concerning making sure that we had the opportunity to look at the offering plan and could make sure that there's an adequate agreement for how those common areas would be maintained. And so as a 3-unit condo, there's a little bit of concern about ongoing maintenance being responsibly shared or cared for by the 3 different property owners. So we did put language in about that. We did talk about utilities coming into the site and made sure that they were separate. Initially, the plans that we got wasn't clear that they were, each had their own water, sewer, gas line. That brought up the gas line issue with the moratorium, and the applicant, I think, has indicated that they had previously contacted Con Ed and had some level of approval for using gas for heat. In the event that they don't have that, they would need to have an alternate system, which might be electric, gas and electric. Doesn't usually get into our purview, but now it does with Con Ed's moratorium. So those were the main concerns that I think have been addressed to this, and there'll be conditions if you do approve it tonight that are substantial, that would need to be carried out so that we're sure that the project is totally workable.
Did you guys get anything that I sent regarding the condominium? I mean, it can sound complicated. In reality, it's pretty straightforward, but New York State's really good at that.
Patty?
The Attorney General office, you know, they don't let you get an offering plan. You can't sell a condo without an approved offering plan. And my experience with that is they go into a level of detail that's draconian. So,
Patty, I think what you're responding to is, well, what you provided was well in excess of what we need. I think the issue just was making sure that it is a condominium development and there is a provision for somebody maintaining the common elements. That's all.
Is that a common theme for what I'm writing lately? And we're writing more information than
Yeah.
You guys say you guys endorse stuff, I think.
So, did you say, oh, here they come. Did you say? Well, we previously closed the public hearing, so we don't have to do that. Are we ready to vote, board? Okay. All right, I will, oh, good, there's 2 of them. Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board Resolution granting site plan approval for the demolition of an existing structure and the construction of a 3-family house together with related site improvements at 40 DeVoe Street, whereas 40 DeVoe LLC, Pren Michael Lang, Pren owner, has applied for site plan approval to demolish an existing 1-family house and replace it with a 3-family house constructed in a townhouse configuration together with related site improvements to his property at 40 DeVoe Street and denoted on tax assessment maps as section block and lot and located in MDR1 zoning district, and whereas the following plans and documents were submitted as part of the application, and it lists everything we've received and reviewed. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the site and surrounding area and the proposed improvement plans, and at their meeting of July 11, 2019, and continued through meetings of August 8 and September 5, held a duly noticed public hearing, and all comments were considered. And whereas the construction I'm trying to think, the public hearing was closed earlier. It may not, the way it's said there. Anyway, whereas the construction of a three-family house will require a sky exposure plane waiver and approval by the Architecture and Historic Review Board, and whereas the applicant is proposing to offer 3 individual units for condominium sale, and given the small size of the development, there must be clarity and adequate provision made in the offering to ensure that common elements of the property will be appropriately maintained. Whereas the proposed project calls for elimination of 1 dwelling unit, the existing single-family house, and the construction of 3 new dwelling units. There is a net gain of 2 new dwelling units, and as the project lacks significant on-site recreational amenities, a further burden will be placed on the village's recreation facilities. Whereas the proposed demolition and subsequent development of a 3-family house together with related improvements is an unlisted action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Whereas the planning board is recipient of the initial application for this unlisted action, is authorized to conduct an uncoordinated review pursuant to CEQA, and now be it resolved that the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry, as part of its, quote, uncoordinated, close quote, environmental review, finds that the subject action will have no significant environmental impact from its construction and operation. And be it further resolved that the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry hereby authorizes the demolition of the existing house at 40 DeVoe Street and grants site plan approval for the subject application, all conditioned on the following. 1, all provisions of the village, county, and state regulations shall be met. 2, they must obtain a waiver of sky exposure plane and approval from the Architectural and Historic Review Board in order to proceed. 3, a copy of the proposed condominium offering shall be provided to the village attorney for his review and comment to ensure the adequacy of the plans and funding for the ongoing maintenance of the property's common areas. 4, prior to issuance of a building permit for the subject application, a payment of $20,000 shall be made to the village's recreation fund. 5, a demolition permit issued by the building inspector shall be subject to such terms and conditions as is warranted to ensure the safe removal of building and utilities and the protection of adjoining properties. 6, a street, curb, utility, and sidewalk restoration cash bond shall be posted prior to the commencement of the demolition activity and to be continued through the site and building construction in an amount drawn to the satisfaction of the building inspector. 7, pursuant to the issuance of a building permit, all required site plan and village consultants' reviews fees shall be paid, and all items in the village consulting engineer's memo dated August 29, 2019 shall be addressed to his satisfaction. The following language shall be added to the plan. Approved subject to all requirements and conditions of a September 5, 2019 resolution of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry, New York. Any change, erasure, modification, or revision of this plan, absent reapproval from the Planning Board, shall void this approval. Be it further resolved that this resolution to have an effective date of September 5, 2019. I make the motion. Is there a second?
Before you vote, I just wanted to clarify 2 items.
Yes.
One is that we should note in here that the public hearing was closed on August 8th, because that's not clear from this. And then I had added a condition under that numbered list. I had it as number 3, which is the property will be developed as a condominium development only. Is that correct? Yeah. This way, if it changes in the future, it's got to come back.
One correction, we should check it, but I think the existing house is a 2-family.
Yes.
So we would only be adding one additional unit.
Go ahead.
Did we vote?
Yeah.
No.
Please,
We didn't
yeah.
vote. No, no.
Where was the rec fee?
They're just making the changes.
We're taking down a two-family, we're replacing it with
Yes,
three-family,
that should be,
one additional.
item 4 should be 10,000.
So with those changes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Was there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? All in favor? The motion passes. The next item, the hopefully last item on our agenda is item number 6, 23 Manor Place, continuation of pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed new driveway. Is there anyone here to represent? There is. There isn't.
23 Manor?
Is that the one with all with the common driveway and
Yes.
all the easements required? And
Yeah.
So where are we legally with all that? Are they still working on that?
I gave an opinion to the, not an opinion, but I suggested that the applicant provide certain information. We haven't heard back.
Okay.
And the owner came in to ask me a code question a while ago as to whether a gravel driveway is permitted in a one-family, and I said, yes, in one and two-family homes, gravel is permitted on the driveway. I don't know if he thought that would allow him to skip the planning board, but that's not the case. So I don't know what he's thinking.
So it's pending additional information?
Yes.
Or legal action, okay.
Didn't we agree at the last meeting that if he didn't make progress on the different legal and other issues related to this and came in with engineered drawings and stuff that we could review, that we would just drop this and he could reapply when he's got
Right.
everything together?
Right. Plus you have to come. It's helpful if you come to the meeting.
So is there a vote to drop this from the agenda?
Yeah. You want to do that?
Is that the right path to take? Assuming that's what we
Yeah,
think
unless-
is the best plan?
We're not even sure he's continuing to proceed with the application because we haven't heard anything, so
No, he's,
I would assume that there's no application currently pending.
So does that require a vote on our part?
Not really. You haven't, did you open a public hearing on this? No.
No.
No, I don't think you need to.
no, we haven't done the first step yet.
Okay.
No, you can just say that,
Just drop it.
just drop it off the agenda and then he'll have to
And
reapply.
then he'll have to renotice it if he comes back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, guys.
It's been lively all through anyway.
Well,
I'm actually here to hear about what.
Yeah, we're interested in the
Kind
next,
of in the next topic.
agenda item.
yes, okay. Well, I think we're done.
189?
41.
Let me get the 41. 41 Cedar. Which
We
we
did.
discussed there earlier, just for the benefit of the public, if you're here for 41 Cedar? No? Oh, okay, never mind.
189 Broadway?
Well, 189 Broadway?
Oh, the last topic.
189 Broadway?
No, the discussion of.
Paper maps, we
Oh.
announced, the
Yeah.
chairman announced at the beginning also that we'll be dropping that from the agenda because council is working on a law that will then go to the Board of Trustees, and possibly the Board of Trustees will decide to send it back here, or they will just approve it themselves. So that'll be a public hearing in front of the Board of Trustees, but Dan's law firm is working on it right
Right.
now. So there's work going on.
Did you have
What we're aiming to do is resolve the issues pertaining to all existing demapped paper streets.
Right.
And that's something that'll have to go before the Board of Trustees, and we're working on it. That's it. That's all there is.
Did you have a question on that?
It was, for a couple, I was, let's say, abruptly woken up at the last meeting when I believe it was, they were talking in general about this application 23 Manor, and somebody at the board mentioned, oh yeah, that's the one that involves the paper street. And I believe, in hindsight, it was you, Ms. Huff, who said, excuse me, gentlemen, could we not refer to them as DMAP paper streets? And I kind of went, what?
No, that wasn't me.
That was Laura. It might not have been you.
Because I'm the one that was, I participated in demapping the paper streets.
Okay. I believe then, I'm led to believe that it was then somebody from your office. Maybe.
Oh, it was, yeah, Laura was here, yeah.
So it was unclear to me that there's a lot carried in a statement like that. It's like saying,
What was,
Steve, I
what was,
believe it was because Laura Lee had asked the village for the background documents and hadn't received them yet, so she didn't know what officially happened yet. Those documents have now been given to
Right.
their office, and Dan is going over them and preparing a proposal to the Board of Trustees.
and
Right.
just on the record, and I'm sure you know this because you're looking at the documents, they were demapped and discontinued.
You gotta use the
correct,
mic.
no, understood, that's, but.
You probably need to use the microphone if we're gonna have this discussion.
Well, I think we're not gonna have a further conversation on this because it's no longer on the agenda, but just to let you know, I understand that the village took action to demap and discontinue those roads. What we didn't have was any of the paperwork for that. And we've been provided with a good deal of information, and we're going to now advise the Board of Trustees on the disposition of those demapped, discontinued streets.
Because I did wonder why it was an agenda item on the planning board.
It was just for discussion, to keep the discussion alive, but.
That's what I was thinking.
But now that we're, right, but now that we're proceeding with the Board of Trustees, that would be the place to go. And it would be an agenda item for them as well.
That's coming up,
It hasn't been
It
scheduled yet
hasn't
because
been
we.
submitted yet. We don't have it yet, so it's not on the agenda until
Hasn't been
the
written, so it's not on the
attorneys give
agenda.
us the actual resolution.
But it's being worked on.
Yeah.
understood. All right, good.
Well, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Do you get the emails that show what the board agendas are?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
just.
follow those, yeah.
All due
Keep an eye
respect,
out.
I was here since the beginning of this meeting when it opened, and I don't recall an extensive explanation that this was going to
That's
not be.
because those people in the hall were making a lot of noise.
It was one of the first things that was mentioned at the head of the meeting, sorry. Yeah, and they were making a lot of noise outside, so.
Oh, come on, you had fun.
But we have sir, you're standing with the mic, is this?
There's no presentation tonight.
We're going to have a 4-hour presentation. For the record, my name is Cosmo Morfione, the BDC Group, owner of 41, also known as 4345 Cedar Street. And I'm just here, just to get the
I'm sorry, I'm missing.
41
So
Cedar.
Cosmo, the public hearing has been closed. This board is going to vote on their recommendation letter, and that's it. There's no presentation, no
No, I
public hearing
understand that.
tonight.
I just want to, you guys, I'm just here for vote.
Okay.
That's it.
Have a good night.
Sorry, we came for the matter of members of the church next door.
Right, and
Something happened earlier?
Yes.
They all left.
Yeah, there was a lengthy discussion early on the agenda, and there were a lot of people here on this matter. What we advised is that the public hearing was closed, it could not be reopened, the matter will be heard by the Board of Trustees. There will be public hearings at the Board of Trustees with ample opportunity for everybody to comment. And right now, all this board is doing is considering a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. It's only the beginning of that review. So there'll be.
Just to clarify, in this particular zone, the Board of Trustees is the approval body, and the planning board is a referral body to the Board of Trustees, as is the Architectural Review Board. So this board had its 3 months of public hearing and closed it at the end of last month's meeting, and are now just voting on the wording in the recommendation to the Board of Trustees. So then, this application is still gonna go to the Architectural Review Board, where you can make comments, and then the public hearing will be held at the Board of Trustees for the actual approval or denial, where you can make comments there as well.
Were there issues of whether there would be construction on what is now their property?
Right, those issues you should address with the Board of Trustees.
So that was an issue with also some other legal levels which that should be taken on.
There is, I'm not sure what you're addressing. Which church are you talking about?
I have two.
Okay,
There's somebody
so
missing one.
nothing will be built on that property.
We're good.
My understanding was that there was a survey that had to do with whether some of the current property that's been used a certain way for the last 100 years is actually part of the property on which.
Right, if there are issues and those issues are raised, the Board of Trustees will require that the applicant respond to those. And, yeah.
From South Press,
Yeah.
right?
He's not.
No, but he was,
Yeah, but, well, that's,
I'd just like to ask, in future, I know there's going to be more public hearings in the Architectural Review Board and Board of Trustees meetings, but is there a way to have ask questions, not only just give comments, but ask questions and actually have a response either from the board or from the applicant?
Both of those boards, you may ask, everybody will have the opportunity to speak at both of those board meetings.
Not only speak, but if the applicant is presenting something and you don't understand it, or there needs to be more.
Yes, that's usually a common occurrence.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, because there's a lot of information,
Mhm.
and I think as if I'm not familiar with how the process works, I can make a statement, but I don't have a lot of, I need more information from a lot of the information that's been given, so I just, it would be helpful.
Yeah, I mentioned before too, that the presentation at the August meeting for the planning board is very extensive, made by the applicant.
Right.
And you can go online and view it on the Dobbs Ferry website. There's a link on the top right hand corner, says Dobbs Ferry TV. You click on that and all the board meetings are listed there. You click on planning board, go to August, and you'll be able to view the entire presentation.
But there's no like click where you can like actually look at the prints that were like put up on the.
Yeah, it's the video of the meeting.
And they must focus on some of it, I think.
but also, aren't the plans available at the building
Yes, you
department?
can always come, any project that's before any of the boards, you can come in and view them at the building department counter. And we're working in the future to upload those plans online on dobbsferry.com, where you could be able to view them from home, but we're not there yet.
Got it, okay.
But,
You
and
can
I,
also see them at any of the board meetings, or you can come in to view them up close in the building department. Just ask Pat Harney that you'd like to see those plans.
Okay,
And-
as the church being the neighbor, that, as Tom was saying, that line is kind of important.
and I think that's especially valuable to see the up-to-date plans, because the plans that were on the Facebook page were older plans that were not accurate, so.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and procedurally, just so you know, you're not supposed to ask questions directly from an applicant. You would ask the board.
Okay.
Go up to the mic, just say, this is my concern, and the board members will hopefully represent you and ask the applicant for a
Right.
response.
That's the information
Just
that I need.
procedurally.
Thank you.
yep.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay, but you could stay and listen to the resolution. Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board recommendation to the Board of Trustees regarding the site plan application for proposed mixed-use building at 41 Cedar Street. Whereas at their April 2019 meeting, the Board of Trustees referred an application submitted by Christina Griffin, Architect PC, on behalf of the owner, Cedar Commons LLC, to the Planning Board for their review and recommendations. Whereas said application called for the demolition of an existing building at 41 Cedar Street, AKA 4345 Cedar Street, and the construction of a mixed-use building consisting of 15 residential units and approximately 2,000 square feet of street-front retail space, together with the construction of below-ground parking and related site work, all to occur at 41 Cedar Street and identified on the tax maps as Section 3.080, Lot 42, Parcel 11, and located in the DP zone. And whereas the applicant has submitted plans and documents for the planning board review as listed, and it's a long, long list of documents we have received and reviewed. Whereas following a June 6, 2019 plan presentation, public hearings on the subject were held on July 11 and the August 8, 2019 to provide for both public input and discussion by and between members of the planning board. And whereas additional correspondence on the subject application has been received, including a comment letter from the County of Westchester Planning Department, as well as letters and emails from interested parties, and the planning board has taken into consideration all such comment. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the site, has reviewed the staff memoranda dated August 2 and August 26, 2019, has received and reviewed a parking memorandum prepared by Philip Greeley of Mazer Consulting. And whereas the applicant has indicated they have entered into an agreement with the adjoining South Presbyterian Church of Greenburgh to acquire a portion of the adjoining property in order to facilitate the installation of utilities to the benefit of both parties, and the planning board is aware that said agreement must be executed for the project to proceed as planned. Whereas the planning board takes note that this project as proposed includes elimination of an existing three-family house and the development of 15 dwelling units, resulting in a net new burden on the village's recreation facilities of the future occupants of the 12 residential units, and further notes that while the provision of rooftop sitting areas is a suitable amenity given the lack of open space on the site, it no way offsets this burden. And now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board herein makes the following findings regarding the subject application. Regarding compliance with the adopted vision plan and zoning ordinance, the proposed project fully complies with the village's zoning ordinance and in several important ways carries out goals and objectives of the vision plan. Specifically, the plan would reduce a one-story building with a three-story building, thus meeting...
Replace a one-story building.
Replace a one-story building with a three-story building, thus meeting the objective as stated, quote, building height should be set at a minimum of 2 stories and a maximum of 3 stories, close, quote. Further, the proposed project meets the goal to, quote, allow housing upstairs. The housing will add to the number of shoppers in the downtown, animates the street life, and may also address the village's concerns about the need for affordable housing, close quote. Regarding compliance with the downtown district building design guidelines, the proposed project has been drawn to meet these guidelines, specifically the retail space, the screen parking, quote, underground, close quote, the building height, the siting of the building so as to present a continuous steep street wall, the decorative facade, all address key components of the guidelines. Regarding environmental review, the Board of Trustees as lead agency will make a determination as to the impacts of the proposed development and the adequacy of any mitigative measures to address identified impacts, however minor. Regarding site mitigation measures, a focus on pedestrian and vehicular safety from the vehicles entering and exiting the garage would seem appropriate and necessary. Regarding economic cost/benefit analysis, the project report prepared by David Smith projects a net tax dollar benefit of $444,798, along with other benefits to the local economy. It would seem a good idea that this report and estimate be reviewed by the village's budget committee, but there appears to be a significant fiscal benefit in any case. Be it further resolved that the Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board recommends that the Board of Trustees grant site plan approval for, quote, Scheme A plan, close quote, and that the following conditions be strictly adhered to. 1, the final design treatment of the Scheme A plan building should incorporate comment from the Architectural and Historic Review Board, subject to final determination of the Board of Trustees. 2, as the subject application proposes the demolition of existing occupied buildings, nothing in this resolution shall be deemed to limit or abrogate the rights of the residential or commercial tenants presently on the site. Additionally, care must be taken to preserve and protect adjacent properties from demolition and excavation activities. A cash bond drawn in an amount deemed sufficient by the building inspector shall be posted in advance of the issuance of any demolition permit. 3, the project calls for development of an underground parking garage to serve future occupants of the building. At least 1 parking space shall be assigned to each of the 15 residential units, and further, employees of the retail storefront portion of the project shall be offered parking garage spaces so as to limit their use of on-street parking spaces. 4, as the parking garage exits out into a busy street, care must be taken to alert and protect pedestrians from vehicles entering and exiting the garage. Additionally, to provide for adequate sight distances for exiting vehicles, 1 or more on-street parking spaces may need to be eliminated. The applicant shall be required to make all needed pedestrian and vehicular safety improvements to the satisfaction of the village's consulting engineers. 5, the project calls for the development of 15 residential units. As proposed, 3 of the units shall be developed, marketed, and sold as quote, affordable housing units, close quote, pursuant to the village's adopted affordable housing ordinance. 6, the applicant shall comply with the conditions enumerated in the James J. Hahn Engineering PC memoranda dated August 2, 2019 and August 26, 2019, to the satisfaction of the village engineer. 7, all applicable provisions of the site plan regulations and other applicable county and state regulations shall be met. The applicant has proposed a number of energy-saving measures which shall be fully incorporated into the final plan and building construction documents. 8, as the proposed development will produce 12 net new additional units and no on-site recreational amenities are provided, a recreation fee of $120,000 shall be paid to the village to be placed in the recreation fee fund account, and this, together with all required site plan and consultant review fees, shall be paid prior to the issuance of a building permit. 9, prior to the issuance of a building permit, a site construction and restoration bond drawn to the satisfaction of the building inspector shall be provided and include work to take place on the applicant's property as well as any work to be performed in the adjoining rights-of-way. Said bond shall convert into a 1-year maintenance bond at the close of construction. 10, the following language shall be added to the plan, quote, approved subject to all requirements and conditions of a resolution dated September 5, 2019 of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry, New York. Any change, erasure, or modification or revision of this plan absent reapproval from the Board of Trustees. Do we mean that? Reapproval from the Board of Trustees shall void disapproval. Does that make sense?
Pick that up from something, but let's put the planning board.
Yeah, I'm not sure you would actually have the planning board's language on the plan. I think 10 should come out because that's not, the plan doesn't come back to you.
Yeah.
And also, I just wanted to clarify, Ed and I were talking, were the 3 units of affordable housing based on the newly adopted ordinance?
The 3 were,
I thought it was 2.
Yeah, I mean,
It's 10%. 10%, 15.
based on the newly adopted ordinance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2.
So 3 is 2.
Yeah, that's in item 5.
I got
Although
it.
3 would be nice.
No comments.
So changing 3 to 2 and then removing item 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Be it further resolved that the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry herein approves the issuance of a demolition permit for the removal of the existing buildings at 41 Cedar Street, subject to only take effect upon the granting of a site plan approval by the Board of Trustees. Upon the determination of the Board of Trustees to deny site plan approval for subject project, this portion of the resolution shall be null and void. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall have an effective date of September 5, 2019. I make the motion. Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
You got three.
3.
Opposed?
Two opposed?
I want to make sure you're
Yes.
actually voting and opposing
Opposed,
or
yes, yes.
abstaining. That's right. Great. Okay, so so 3 ayes, 2 nays. Thank you.
Does there need to be anything in the resolution about the current tenants in the restaurant?
Yeah, just that they're protected under their lease, which was in there.
Okay.
There was an item in there.
There's a
Okay.
reference
Yes,
to
it's
it, but
number-
we're not
And that's actually,
involved in
Nothing
that.
we're doing is canceling leases or doing anything to force them out.
that's number
That's an abrogation.
2.
Right, I think it's just saying that
Number
there's
two,
nothing we're,
You know, I don't know if it's the purview of the planning board, but it is really important to me to
Oh, yeah.
treat those two tenants fairly, because they have deep roots at Dobbs Ferry,
that's, it's beyond the
I
planning
know,
board's
I know.
purview, but I think the
I know
language
it
was helpful because it says we're not doing anything to affect those
Yes.
leases.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that we failed at is enough communication with the community about the process. And I think that Niall was correct about, and don't steal my pen. Niall was correct.
Nice pen.
Was correct about that we have to do better to get the word out to people, because you saw that who was here.
What would you suggest? Door to door? I
No,
mean,
Ed.
we publicize it, we make them send letters.
I know, but
We
it-
post it on the website, it's all over the place, it's out in the hall.
Well,
It's-
I
Was it in the
think, yeah,
paper too, you said?
Yes,
you know, maybe
posted-
it's on there, you
Noticed
know,
in the newspaper.
The-
on
the
their
unusual thing-
SOS website or something, you know, there's a
No,
way.
we can't post anything on a non-recognized.
Yeah, it's,
The interesting thing in Dobbs Ferry that I've noticed since I've been here is that everything gets posted every month, like, even if it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
renoticed or reposted, it does get. but-
somehow we're not
but yeah.
getting through, though.
I think
don't know. We've
promoting-
had this discussion before.
People aren't looking until
think
a neighbor or somebody they talk to complains to them and says something, and all of a sudden everybody gets up in arms, and they think they haven't been told, but it's noticed as best as it can be, better than most of the surrounding villages. It's really something we do.
So, yeah, I know, I understand, it's maybe a matter of education where people can find this stuff. I don't know how we
Maybe-
do that.
Maybe, the mayor or
We
somebody's
talked about
talking at a.
it used to be the
but
newspaper
If you don't
that's gone
watch
around.
those meetings, you don't hear it either.
Well, something that's a little different here, though, and I think you touched on it, was you said that the people that get noticed, if you're in a residential neighborhood, everybody within 200 feet or whatever
Right,
gets a
the
little
owners, the
certified
owners.
notification, right? But in this case, the residents aren't the owners.
We don't have a database of tenants, and so it's not possible to set, if you've got an apartment building within that 200-foot radius, we don't make them send it to every tenant there. It's just the owner, and we don't have that database, and to create that would be a tremendous task.
Well, I'm just wondering if that wasn't part of this particular scenario's communication challenges.
Was a notice, just out of curiosity, was a notice sent to Zion?
Excuse me, but we did not receive a notice. We received a notice after the first presentation. So we did not get on the first round.
In June.
of notification, Zion.
After the pre-submission, so you got.
After the first presentation where it was presented to the board, because we were taken aback, and then we came to the next one, which I think was in May, and there was no visual presentation, because I was here.
Right, see,
That's
there's
my remembrance.
there isn't a specific obligation of sending notices out for a pre-submission meeting. It's the public hearing that triggers the notice provision. The public hearing was it June, July, and August?
July and August.
But I think one of the things, and certainly the mayor can,
The public hearing that was in July, the first one I saw was July 3rd. I mean, I think that's part of the problem that it was summertime. July 3rd is essentially July 4th. I mean, people are really not here. And I was not here. So that was July 26th and August 8th, those are, people are away. You know, a lot of.
The majority of the people are actually here, basically. I mean,
Pardon me?
the majority of the people are actually here. I mean, it's not like 50% of the people are on vacation.
We can't.
I mean, you can't,
Can't shut
you
down the
can't,
village for this.
right, but applicants are property owners too, and they have certain rights, and we can't say to them, you know, school is out on June 25th, so don't come in until September. It's very difficult. I think one of the things that the village can certainly do is promote the website, because I know that if you know there's meetings every Tuesday, or of the Board of Trustees, every other Tuesday, you can go on the website in advance, click on it with reasonable, I don't know how current or how quickly they had the agendas, but the agendas eventually get online. So certainly, over the weekend before a
But
meeting,
I've-
you may be able to get that.
Before even being involved in the board, I signed up for a newsletter that I get every month in my email, and I get the architectural review board, I get all the agendas.
Zoning board.
The zoning board, I get all of them.
Well, everybody
So-
gets their tax bill, for instance, you know, on the tax bill, we could have a flyer that says, this is how you access the Dobbs Ferry website. I mean, there's something we can do,
But
you
you
know.
can ask to be on the mailing
Yeah,
list.
if you wanna know what's happening in Dobbs
And
Ferry, you know.
then you just
some-
automatically get it whenever
There-
it comes
There's
out.
one little piece missing here that, where,
Yeah.
you know, we get people connected to the information so that we would like to avoid the situation that happened tonight. I mean, it was really sort of terrible for them.
Sure.
You know,
And
for
us.
us too. So,
Well, I think that this is such a large project. It seems like somehow it went under the radar, so when people didn't look at their email or didn't look at the website, if it's a house down the street, it's one thing, but if it's all of a sudden this kind of surprising
Very public.
structure to a lot of people in the middle of their town, I don't know if that's the difference.
It is.
between Needing to have maybe more, I don't know if it's a question of scale, that maybe there needs to be a little bit more on the part of notifying people. Does that make sense to you at all?
It's really not based on the scale,
No, I'm just
yeah.
saying, obviously, I wasn't here at the beginning, I'm sorry, so people seem to be upset, and I know in that community. So you're just getting feedback that maybe, and I'm hearing some people say up here that it would be a good idea to try something different. I know what you're saying you can do, but perhaps there needs to be in a
I
situation.
mean, also, I
like this.
wonder, I'm hearing a lot of negative impact on this project and from the community, and I'm wondering, is it possible to get the plans out or some sketches or something of what we are proposing?
well, they are working on that, is putting that
As I said, the
drawings online.
website has the actual meeting.
Yeah.
Full presentation.
And one thing Ed had mentioned earlier, at the earlier part of the agenda, was that they're working on upgrading the, I guess, the online capability of the village's website so that plans can be
Right.
uploaded
'Cause I
onto
think
the
that would be
website.
helpful
Ho-
for you to see the stages.
Obviously, that didn't help tonight because it hasn't been done yet, but
Still, people need to know to go there
Right,
to look.
yeah.
So
Right. I think
we can't notice everybody personally. And so
Right.
to your point, the question is, how do we inform
Right,
more
that-
people?
that
And
just
I
little
think that's
step.
something for the Board of Trustees to work on, because, you know, it's not here, it's not in my department, it's, I can't go and tell the treasurer to send out a notice with your tax bill,
Yeah.
but maybe the Board of Trustees can. I don't know. But we're putting it everywhere we have to, are required to. And we're trying to put it more places.
A little aside on this, I think the village has done certain things to make sure that there was good public input. This project, for instance, requires a report and recommendation from the planning board that has a public hearing, and then goes to the Board of Trustees, which then has a public hearing. So if you looked at where their carve-out is for projects that go before the Board of Trustees, pretty much almost all of the larger or more influential or important projects have this double review, basically. This one, and you'll see all the people that were here tonight, they're gonna go to the Board of Trustees meeting. So it's not, I don't feel notification for these larger and then when there's a draft environmental impact statement, there's a whole, you know, often they wind up in a 2-year process with public input from here to kingdom come. Or sometimes the one we did was 4 years or something. So anyway, this is speaking as an outsider, but who's worked with a lot of different villages and other, we have a very good safety protocol to ensure public input for the larger projects. I think we just do. And sometimes you look at it and say, boy, this is going on forever. And instead, people are thinking, wow, we got shortchanged, we didn't get to, well, that process actually started, I don't know, the applicant can tell you, to the Board of Trustees looked at this thing a long time ago and finally referred it to us at a public meeting. And then we got it and got an initial report, and then we started to go set up a real process for reviewing it. All of those things then came to a public hearing. The public hearing was noticed, and then everybody finally felt like they were not getting the right information. And that's a second point. The right information is very important because oftentimes what is a sort of scuttlebutt is actually misinformation. It's not actually, right now a lot of people are upset about what the planning board has recommended because the information they got about the project was either old or inaccurate. And so that now the lucky part about that is, okay, that happened. Now those people will go to the Architectural and Historic Review Board, which will be discussing it. Those are open meetings. They're not public hearings, but they take input from people. And then it goes to the Board of Trustees. So I can't remember a project where I felt like the public was cheated out of a shot here in this village. Now, that's not true everywhere, at really getting the plans and getting a real good look at it and getting a chance to talk about it and speak their mind on it. So the other thing I was going to say when we were talking before is, you can still, questions are almost sometimes better sent in a letter form or email. Sometimes, because then people can round up the information for you. I mean, both are good, but they're, for in-depth questions, my experience is the ones that are written, that can have comments and questions, are pretty effective at getting a full-blown response to it, as opposed to just something that goes back and forth at a meeting. So all those things, but speaking for myself, I don't feel like we've had a project, as far as I've been here, that people didn't have a shot at, saying they're in favor, opposed, like, and so I'm sorry about this group coming tonight and feeling like they were cheated out of an opportunity, but they might have been cheated out of an opportunity, but boy, do they have opportunities, and you all have opportunities to actually speak on this going forward.
Does Dogsbury, I'm not a social media person, but do they have a Facebook page in which you could say?
No.
No. You could say, and because people use Facebook so much,
You know,
if you have questions, right, but that was very helpful. I mean, I've learned that through this process, that I can write, I can email in, because when you have a project that's so huge, as a layperson, you don't think of everything right away. And if it's our church, we have multiple layers of questions that we're not gonna think of right away. But if there were a way for the layperson to say, gosh, I can write in, wow, I can sit at home and go,
You can write in, there's a contact us button on the Dobbsferry.com website. And you can send emails directly to the planning board, to the zoning board, to the traffic committee, to all the committees, to the board of trustees. So on the website, there is a contact us link, so you can
now
send stuff
I've been
in.
telling people to do that.
And those do get forwarded to us.
Yeah, we read them.
Those do get forwarded to us.
In fact,
No, I understand that, but
in fact, written comments were received tonight, but sent to the Board of Trustees.
no, I'm just trying to find ways to break down.
Yeah,
the barriers.
good. All right, thanks, Mayor.
I just had one question or comment. It seems to me that when the major neighbor is a religious institution, it's more complicated and sensitive. The people who are affected are not residents of the church. Well, except there's a couple who live on the property, but it seems like something that, I don't know how it went down, but who do you notify as the neighbor in the case of the church?
The property, whoever's listed as the property
From
owner.
a neighbor, I know who it is. and
The property owner.
I'm a property owner. But so is it the diocese? I mean, you write to.
I think it goes to the church
Whoever
itself, right in town.
On the tax roll is listed as the property owner.
The church is.
Yes, so that's
Yeah,
who
it's,
goes.
well, it's the way I understand it is that the vestry is we don't own the property outright, that's owned by the diocese, but we oversee it, so we are.
So that
the
database is
steward.
gleaned from the tax rolls.
Right.
So
and-
whoever's listed
It'll
as
go.
responsible for paying the taxes on that property is the person who is noticed.
Right, it'll go to 55 Cedar Street, it'll go there, that's where it'll go.
Good. Thank you.
And closing the meeting?
We did that.
No, we didn't.
We didn't? All right.
Continue 189.